Who is Jason Beck? Is he the man that's going to revolutionize the Utah Utes offense? And a BYU Cougar, formerly, who's now a current Utah Ute, could play a big role in the Utah Utes this year. We're going to discuss it on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen and view of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. It's your first time tuning into our show. Make sure you like and subscribe. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege, all caps, no spaces, at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. My name is JT Wistersill, and on today's show, I was joined by the host of the Ben Criddle Show, Ben Criddle, to talk about Jason Beck. Ben was teammates with Jason at BYU. So I wanted to get to know, what was Jason like? How is he going to do? What's his football background? What's his IQ? How is he going to be able to be the guy that revolutionizes this Utah offense? That's what we all talked about with Ben Criddle. Also talked about a former BYU player transferred to Utah. Not a lot of people are talking about him this year. Didn't have the impact in year one, but I think could be a guy for the Utah Utes this year. So we dive into that, as well as just the state of the rivalry as a whole. All that and more coming up with a full episode with my guest, Ben Criddle. Please enjoy this interview that took place at Big 12 Media Day on Locked On Utes. Ben Criddle with ESPN Radio, kind enough to join me here. And Ben was teammates with Jason Beck. So I think Jason Beck was a great hire. I think he's going to do a great job revolutionizing this Utah offense. Led the fourth best offense in a yards per game basis a season ago. Brings his quarterback with him. I'm excited and high on him, but I want to know, when did you first realize, hey, this Jason Beck guy, he knows ball?
Well, Jason, you got to realize, going back as a teammate, he was always an extremely good player. It was unfortunate coming from the JUCO ranks, where I think he had only taken one loss in his career. Even going back into high school, he was a highly productive quarterback, extremely high football IQ. So as you go deep into his resume, he had never not been the starter, and he had never really lost any games besides that one game at the College of the Canyons. I think, it was like a championship game. So he comes to BYU, and he's got to battle it out with John Beck, who ended up being a second round pick to the Miami Dolphins. One of the most, productive quarterbacks in BYU football history from a statistical standpoint, and one of the most talented. He had a live arm, one of the best arms in BYU football history. And obviously there's Utah fans out there that, remember the Beck to Harley Inn. It was a miracle, right? And that was his kind of crowning achievement in the rivalry game. But that's who Jason was competing against. Jason got a start in 2006. I think it was his only start against Utah State. And at that time, Utah State wasn't necessarily a powerhouse, and they hadn't kind of rebuilt and remodeled and refashioned and retooled like they were in the Gary Anderson era, and even presently or even recently in the modern era. And so, but Jason put up 300 plus yards and 3 touchdowns, was extremely efficient. He was a great quarterback. So that alone, he knows the game. He's been productive at the high school level, at the JUCO level. And then, when he was given opportunities, he would have been a starter in any given year if there wasn't a second round NFL pick. So that was kind of what I knew about Jason. Good man, good teammate, team first mentality, a stoic. If you're around Jason, you're going to notice that he's extremely, not that he's not interactive and dynamic, he can be. He's extremely relational and personable and kind and empathetic and competitive. It's a molding his holistic mind. So, you're going to see stoicism. And I think when you're in the fog of war in battle, this is modern gridiron warfare that we're talking about. And on that battlefield, there are emotions at play. There's pressure. There's this cortisol level that can reach heights that can send you into into craziness, right? And you've seen it with coaches, you've seen it with, when people lose it. So as an offensive coordinator, you have to stay level-headed, level-minded when a quarterback's struggling, and you got to be able to be a calming presence. You have to be able to communicate in a way that allows your quarterback to see the vision that you're articulating. And if you're just screaming and yelling and you're just in his ear, like it doesn't work with all quarterbacks. He's capable of, I think, meeting eye to eye with any quarterback and coaching them up and allowing them to see his vision for them. He'll utilize the talents that he has in his room to maximize, the efficacy and efficiency of his offense. So at every single level as a coach, whether it was like in like a D3 NA in Canada, he's put up numbers. He's moved the sticks. He's scored touchdowns. He's just an astute student of the game that has great relational skills and communication skills. And in this day and age, he's a perfect balance, I think, in the form and fashion which he runs his offense. Yeah, he's a quarterback. He wants to pass the ball, but look at what he did for running the football wherever he's gone. Like, he's a well-balanced coordinator that stretches the field horizontally and vertically. And he's a good sequential play caller, meaning plays build off plays, showing you same similar looks with same similar personnel groupings, and you build off of that for your big plays with the 40 going in. So love Jason. As I told you, love the hire, hate the hire, because I think Kyle finally found a guy that will fit him in the best way. And I thought Ludwig was going to be that guy, right? I thought like he was going to be there forever until Kyle retired, but it just didn't work out. There's been a lot of turnover there. And I'm like, who can fit in with Kyle? Who can stoically like not be emotionally deterred from his game plan and what he wants to do and what his vision is when things get rough on the sideline in that fog of war? Jason, I think, is the guy, because he dealt with Robert and I for a long time. Robert and I he gets after it. And Robert has been, OC for him. And then he was OC, Jason was the passing game coordinator and quarterbacks coach under Robert and I for a long time. And I know the personality of Robert, and he can be abrasive. He can be very opinionated. He can be like, similar to Kyle. Kyle and Robert were kind of, the I would say on the BYU football team. Robert was that grimy offensive lineman that was always getting into fights with guys like Kyle. Does that make sense? Like, so I think Jason understands, that personality that Kyle has, and he's willing to kind of abide by the culture, the grit culture, right, that you guys have up there. And he's going to do great things, which is great for Utah. If you're a BYU fan, you're like, oh man, they got Jason Beck, you got Mark, you got the Y. There's a lot of nice hires that you have on the offense side of the ball.
Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having a personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. I love Monarch because it's more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building your wealth. With Monarch Money, just in general, I know one thing it's helped me with is help me manage my money, because I don't know about you guys, but often I feel like I'm spending way too much and been surprised by how fast it all adds up. That's where Monarch helps me keep it all organized so that I can budget my money better and smarter. You can take control of your finance with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all caps and no spaces, at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. It's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege, all caps and no spaces, for half off your first year when you use Monarch Money today.
You can almost already see it. Like, if things go, obviously Aaron Roderick gets a lot of flack from some BYU fans.
Oh, sure.
You can already see, like, if Jason Beck's offense flourishes this year and it doesn't go that way for Roderick, it'll be very interesting to see what it's like online. And if it doesn't go well, you probably stay off if you're Roderick.
No, there's plenty of BYU fans. Fans are going to have strong opinions about what they see. Some of them are football minds. Some of them are armchair quarterbacks, right? That think they know it all. And that's fine. Like, every opinion to me matters as a creator of content, conversation, and, sports talk. So, I think, Jason is a guy that is going to be a perfect fit for Utah. And there's going to be a lot of opinions about, from the BYU side, if he is effective, which I think he will be. They're like, man, why didn't we get Jason? That's how it is, right? And I understand that. Excuse me. So I'm gonna have to deal with that on my shows. like, oh man, why didn't we get Jason? Why didn't we, get him in 2018? I'm like, well, every coach has their network. Every coach has their relationships. And, I think there's an argument to be made that you could have gone out and got, I guess, Jason at that time when he was at Virginia or Syracuse. But Kalani has always been arm in arm with A-Rod, except for a short period of time when he went to Oregon State and when there was a sabbatical for Aaron when he was released as the offense coordinator at Utah. So anyway, those are my thoughts on that potential situation this year that I'm going to have to address when Utah's moving the sticks.
Well, and everyone, thinks it's just so easy to move the sticks, right? So that's the funny thing of like, you don't move on from Roderick after the season that you just had. Like that just doesn't, you don't do that either. So, but that'll be an interesting thing that comes that happens. Last Jason Beck focus question. Do you have a Jason Beck favorite story of yours that you could share with our audience?
I mean, like I said, the Utah State game for me, it's what you do under the lights. It's what you do when you hit the field. Obviously, I knew he was a good quarterback in practice, but you never know in games. You just never know when there's stresses and emotions. And granted, it was Utah State. It wasn't that big of a game. It was at home. There wasn't as many variables and volatilities in that game. He wasn't going on the road versus a power conference team or anything like that. But I just remember him stepping up to the plate and just hitting dingers. You know what I mean? Just throwing fades to Johnny Harleen and being productive and always ready, always prepared. So that's how I see him. Like I see him as an individual that is purposeful. He lives his life with intent. I love his family, love his wonderful wife, a former soccer player at BYU. He comes from an athletic family. He's built an athletic family. That's Jason. Jason loves ball. Ball is life. And you want those kind of as a coordinator, you want those like jock nerd hybrids who are very analytical, stoic, and ultimately just are erudites of the game, right? They just study it intently and purposefully, and that's Jason. So I would say that Utah State game in 2006, you guys go back and pull up the stats, right? Like I just remember walking away from that, like, I was a little concerned. It's like, oh man, like Utah State's not a good team. We'll win. We're a good football team. But Jason just stepped up and was prepared and was awesome in that game.
And we hope he's going to be an awesome offensive coordinator. Definitely feels likely that will be the case. And speaking of awesome, there's a guy on Utah's roster who was a BYU Cougar. Now, obviously, every good conversation has been Tanuvasa went from Utah to BYU. Carson Ryan, the most recent one as well. But there was a guy just last year. It's a defensive lineman that we were talking about a little bit earlier. And Utah's defensive line, tons of turnover. I mean, you have Connor O'Toole's a Seattle Seahawk, Van Fillinger. I can't remember if he ended up going somewhere or not. I thought he should have been, but I don't know if he ended somewhere. Yeah. Either way, Utah lost a ton on the defensive line. There was one guy who was there last year, didn't play a ton. So very productive in high school. You think that John Henry Daly could be a guy for the University of Utah? Why is that?
Well, and granted, eyes on him recently. I didn't watch him in spring ball, right? So the Utah fans or the Utah media members are going to have more eyes on. What I'd say about John Henry is the clay is phenomenal. The competitive mindset is phenomenal. Like you can always ask more of John Henry Daly. I mean, the name says it all. A guy by the name of John Henry Daly, like you should be able to like you can ask more of John Henry. You can ask him to watch more film. You can ask him to lift more weight. You can ask him to eat more food. You can ask him to stretch more. You can ask him like, hey, you're not doing enough. You're not leading well enough. You're not being vocal enough. You're not giving enough effort. You're not finishing plays. You can always ask more from John Henry Daly. He comes from a football family. His father played at BYU. His mother is the sister of David Nixon, former BYU great linebacker, and she was a phenomenal athlete. The Nixon family is very good athletes. So Michael Daly playing at Rice. He was playing at Rice last year as an outside linebacker. I think he's playing again this year. I have to check the roster. But it's a football family. So John Henry is going to be a dude eventually. Obviously, he came off a mission, red-shirted at BYU. It's hard to come off a mission and make an immediate impact sometimes. There's health concerns, acclimation concerns, all those things. He ended up entering the portal, felt like that was the right thing for him. Ends up at Utah, which Obviously, you look at the resume building of defensive linemen at Utah. It's like, well, why wouldn't I? Can stay home, close to home, go play P4 football, get developed at Utah and make it into the NFL. That was, I think, the idea. And I think he contributed, last year, and he looked good. He's got a great get off. He's more of a linear player right now than a multi-directional player. But as he increases his range of motion, increases his bend, gets a little bit more, what I say, like pliability, as the TB12 model talks about. Like, I know for quarterbacks, but like pliability and, these neuromuscular movements as a defensive end, you're just going to see him take off. Like, is it this year? Maybe. Like, you guys got always some great competition off the edge. But he's one of those guys that is going to be capable as he develops within that strength and conditioning program, nutritional program, to have his initial move will be a bull rush. He'll be able to button press because he's so physical off the line of scrimmage, and he'll get linear. That 10 split will be really good for him, and he'll button press and can push it back. And then off of that, he's going to do, his additional ancillary moves, maybe his, coming off the edge and dipping around. Like I said, he's getting better at that from what I've talked about with some family members. I think he's going to be a great player for Utah. Trust me, BYU and their staff were very excited about John Henry Daly. And I said, like, his trajectory to me is a JJ Watt type of player because of his clay, his potential, and his work ethic. So that's kind of how I see John Henry Daly.
Yeah, and it'd be massive. He could be a guy. I mentioned how many questions that Utah has along the defensive line, but as we've also touched on a lot now, he wasn't always at Utah. He was at BYU. So I want to know, Ben, what do you think about the transfer portal relationship between Utah and BYU and how it's evolved in an era where there's more portal movement and more transferring than ever?
Yeah, from a content standpoint and a conversation standpoint, there's drama. Look, whether we like it or not, my wife will watch reality TV. I'm like, that is trash TV. That's trash TV. Like, what is this? These reality shows, whatever Mormon Housewives or Love Island, or I'm roasting her here with some of the reality TV shows. She's like, I just do it to stay on top of things so that when my friends are talking about it. But this is our soap opera, right? This is men's drama, right? Oh, get on Twitter and we opine, we debate. You get into arguments, right, with other fan bases, and you throw out your confirmation bias statements. Like, that's what we do. Sometimes it's not factual. Sometimes it's just confirmation bias. You think it's factual, but maybe it's not. So for me, the Utah-BYU rivalry, one thing I'll say about rivalries in college football, and specifically the Utah-BYU rivalry, I think when you take away rivalries with the intent and quest to make more money, I understand that, right? You have a P&L within your athletic department. You have to do what's best for your university. But in a world that is under the guise of amateurism has proclaimed that student athletes is what it's all about, you're actually screwing over the enriching experience of the student athlete by taking away rivalries that are so integral to the historical and even present condition of college football. There's nothing better than rivalries. There's nothing better than neighborly enmity on the gridiron. Like, there just isn't. I had no idea what that meant in college. In high school, you have your rivalries, and it was kind of frenemies because we grew up together playing in the football scene. When I came up to BYU as a JUCO transfer, I had no idea how volatile it was. I go to Rice-Eccles Stadium, right? And I'll get to the names that have been cross-pollinated here in a moment. I go up to Rice-Eccles Stadium in 2006. Have no clue, right? Coming off a redshirt season. And it gets nasty really quick. I remember Utah ran a post wheel on the south end zone to like Marquise Wilson, and I got a big pass breakup. But in the process of that, your guys' horrible turf before you guys upgraded it caused a turf toe injury because it was worse carpet than it was like cement and then carpet. And so I hyperextended the toe, and I was like, dang, man, I can't launch. Anyways, I want that as my foundational statement about the rivalry because I love it. And I think taking away from it from a socioeconomic standpoint and an enrichment standpoint for the student athlete is a travesty. I think it's unfortunate. So I love that it's back. Now, the cross-pollination. Like, I'm aggregating a list and I think I've done this on the show, but it's been a while. But I was looking at who's benefited more from transfers, BYU or Utah, in between each other, right? And you have BYU to Utah, right? Francis Bernard, Devin Kafusi, John Henry Daly, Logan Fano recently. But Utah to BYU, like I said, I'm trying to think of others that went from BYU to Utah. And we were just talking about this on my show. So I was trying to figure out who it all was. But Utah to BYU, you got Harvey Longy, Austin Lee, Simi Moala, Paul Miley, Hunter Clegg, and Carson Ryan. So
and about to be Tanu Vasa too.
And that's right. And then Keanu Tanavasa, right? So we get to see him now. So you look at that, and I'm trying to think of who I'm forgetting in the BYU to Utah. And right now, the list that we have, it's it looks like BYU's made a pretty strong impact as well. I mean, but from a feeling standpoint, it feels like in the modern era, Utah has benefited more from the transfers, right? But recently, you can make an argument that, hey, you took Keanu Tanavasa, that was one of your guys' best defensive players. So I love what it adds to the rivalry. Look at even the coaching staff. Look at the coaching staff. Now you have a bifurcation of sorts, this hybrid model of Utah BYU players. Kyle's a former BYU player. Jason Beck, Marquis Atawaya, right? Your wide receivers coach,
Micah Simons.
Micah Simon. Coy Detmer Jr. You know what I mean? And then on our side of things, Gary Anderson's over there. Kalani's there. Aaron Rodder, also BYU guys, but they were at Utah, right? And Jay Hill and Sione Puha. And it's just it's kind of crazy to see how, even though there's a competitive environment, there's also a ton of there's actually some synergy there too, and there's a mutually beneficial relationship of sorts that's occurring. And we all know Utah's dominated the rivalry in the modern era. BYU is on a 2-0 win streak right now, and Kyle definitely does not want to go out with an L. He will not go out with an. I don't think he's going to retire till he beats BYU. My personal opinion. I think we may have discussed that the last time you were on my show, prior to today. But, that's where I stand with the rivalry and, kind of this synergistic cross-pollination between the two schools. I love it. I love the rivalry. I love Utah. My nephew that's at BYU right now, that Jay Hill ended up offering, he has a lot of family on his mother's side that are diehard Utah fans. So I sent him up to the Utah camp. I was like, bro, I called up the player personnel director. I was like, look, Tommy Prassis, number 22, you'll see him on the football field. He played this last year as a true freshman. I was like, look, they do great stuff with their safeties up at Utah. And if they like you and they offer you, it's a great place to play. He went up there. They didn't offer him. Great. Jay Hill did. Awesome. You get to play ball at BYU, and it was his best offer. So I love, like I said, the rivalry, and I love that competitive environment that it creates.
I love it too. And because it's a rivalry so well, you obviously follow Utah closely. What are your thoughts, predictions, and just feelings about Utah football for the 2025 season?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to pull up the data on this, but it's a rare occasion to have back-to-back losing seasons in Utah football history post 2000, right? It doesn't happen. So candidate for a bounce back season, obviously they should be a very good candidate. 7.5 wins is the win total per Circa Sports in Vegas. I feel like they're going to hit that over. If I was a betting man, then I'd bet the over there. I do think the one volatility in all this is, and Kyle would probably push back on this. I think he was maybe asked this question last year by the media. I do wonder if the Big 12, with its depth, with its parity, with an increase in physicality in the trenches, was a contributing factor to the injuries last season, the attrition within the roster that led to some of those one-score games not bouncing in Utah's favor, right? BYU in its first season of Big 12, it was demolished with injuries, it seemed. And it's hard to stay healthy in football no matter what, right? No matter who you're playing, whether it's formerly the Pac-12, Big 10, Big 12 football, G5 football, whatever it is, it's hard to stay healthy. But, I mean, the only thing that's going to, as always, and it's cliche to say, the only thing that's going to deviate Utah from getting to that 8+ win total and having I think a bounce back season and going to a good bowl game this year is injuries, right? And depth at certain key positions.
Yeah, it feels like this team's got a chance to do some great things, but got to put the pieces together, got to stay healthy. And like I said, it's kind of been the thing for them for a couple years now. So hopefully this will be the year that they're able to do everything. Ben, it's been a blast so much. Thank you for coming on. Please let everyone know where they can find you at and find your show too.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to hear like the perspective of a BYU fan, I know there's a lot of Utah fans out there that think it's just all blue goggled. It's all confirmation bias. There's no constructive criticism on our show. But I think those that want to hear kind of the opposite view or a balanced view of BYU athletics. It's pros and cons. It's quality and its imperfections. I think our show is great. It's Cougar Sports with Ben Criddle on ESPN The Fan, ESPNthefan.com. You can check out the podcast. We do get into some Utah talk. Not a ton, right? But we do talk Big 12 and Utah. On occasion. And it seems like whenever I tweet, and the thousands of tweets I put out, right, on social media, the Zeets or whatever, like every time I ask a question about Utah fans are like, you don't even cover Utah. Why are you even asking about it? I'm like, guys, like, just look at it's 99% BYU college football, Big 12. Like 1% every once in a while I'll tweet about Utah and ask a question. So anyway, don't be too critical of my once in a while Utah questions, right? I'm just kind of getting a feel for what like the one I want to put out right now is like who's benefited more in the portal era, in the modern era, this in this rivalry with transfers. I think it's a cool question. I think it's something that creates debate. How I view my show is if we're on the golf course together with the boys, what are we talking about? What are we debating? What are we getting after? And it's fun. And it's, I'm always willing to have a conversation and find the truth of the matter in a debate.
I love that. Appreciate that. Make sure you guys go check out his show. To answer your question, by the way, I would say Utah has benefited more currently, but I do believe Keanu Tanavasa has a chance to be the best player in recent memory that is transferred from BYU to Utah or either one. So I do think Tanavasa's could end up flipping it, but it's definitely this conversation for another day. Ben, really appreciate you coming on once again. That's going to do it for today's Locked On Utes. Hope you'll join us again tomorrow as we're talking the latest in Utah athletics.
That's going to do it for today's Locked On Utes. Make sure you come back tomorrow. My interview with Smith Snowden will be dropping. Got Smith Snowden for 9 minutes, so a long interview with Smith Snowden at Big 12 Media Days, talking about the upcoming season, expectations, all of that. Make sure you join us tomorrow on Locked On Utes for it.